My name is Giulio Ruffini. I am the director of Starlab, a company in Barcelona, Spain. And I'm also the coordinator of PEACH, a coordination action of the European Commission, focusing on presence research and supporting presence research. I am currently, my most relevant part of the work today in presence really is about supporting the presence community. We do also some work on neuroscience research, but I think it's a little bit tangential at the moment to presence. Mostly about physiological recording of data on the go and extracting meaningful information about it. But in terms of work, today in the presence context, my main focus is to try to support the presence community in defining where they want to go, providing the means to talk to each other, because one of the biggest problems in presence is that it's an interdisciplinary field, and that gives it a lot of richness, but at the same time it's also a source of problems, because there are many fields that don't connect to each other, don't talk to each other sufficiently well. So this is one of the main tasks that we have. There's also tasks relating to understanding the social impact of presence research, ethical, legal issues, and supporting the Commission in the definition and the research community themselves in defining the roadmap, the visions of the field, where they want to go, and ensuring that they are well defined and they can also have a great impact on society. Okay, to me it's very important to distinguish between what presence is as a phenomenon and indeed what it is as a field of research and what it's trying to address. So as a phenomenon, presence really starts with something that psychologists call qualia, which is an experience, and it's the experience of being. I mean, it's normally stated as the experience of being there, being somewhere, and it's a very profound aspect of human experience, just being and being somewhere. And here the two aspects of presence enter, which is they are about where you are, the environment, the space in which you are inhabiting, and also your body, what your body is about, and the relationship between your body and the environment. So that's, as a phenomenon, as a qualia, I would say, it's pretty clear. I guess most people who are alive are present in their mind, so I think everybody can relate to that. As a measurable phenomenon, presence, it's much more restricted because it has to be measured. So in terms of measurement, you have to define presence, the phenomenon of the measurable phenomenon of presence in terms of something that you can scientifically measure and quantify. There is a qualia of presence, which everybody can relate to, but in order to make a scientific study of presence, you have to define a measurable phenomenon of presence, and that's where the definition of presence as having to do with experiencing or showing the same kind of behavior and physiological responses to a virtual environment as you would do in a real situation. That's the success criterion and measurable criterion of presence. It's more restrictive than the qualia, but it's something that we can work with. And in this sense, so the field of presence, in my view, is the scientific field studying, trying to predict when this successful replacement of sensorial data will occur and understanding why. And in that sense, it's closely related to understanding how the human brain constructs models of reality and self. But I think it's a higher level aspect of the problem, but probably the one that encapsulates the field rather well. Right, so it's indeed one of within the coordination action of PEACH, we have detected through discussions with the community and have observed that there is quite a dispersion in what the field is about, and this has to do in part with the term presence, which is something that everybody can relate to and give its own interpretation, and the fact that it's closely related to the human experience of existence. And that means that there are there are many different forces pulling in different directions on the field, also associated to the multidisciplinarity involved, and therefore this is one critical aspect that we are trying to provide means to improve the situation. And I think the definition of presence, I think, will take longer for people to really come to some consensus. So our approach is trying to provide, I think the goal of presence is clear to everybody. I think everybody understands that the goal of the field is to develop technologies, the scientific understanding, but then technologies in order to really achieve this successful replacement, to really being able to put a person in a virtual environment and making them feel like they're there, and perhaps having a different body or something like that. That's kind of a technological objective, which is, I think, everybody can agree to. So our strategy is to try to have people gather around a grand challenge project, something like an Apollo project or a Manhattan project for the field, which is challenging, long-term, and it's at the core of the field, and which by its own complication and demands will collect all the community around pushing us in direction. So that's what we're trying to do at the moment. Presence is first and foremost a science. It has to become a science, and it's really closely related to neuroscience because presence happens in the human brain, and the modern scientific approach to that is called neuroscience, and so in that sense, it's pretty clear. Presence is already a technology. I mean, there are, I think, and there's also, we're also observing that the technological side of presence is perhaps moving faster in some ways than science. So it's possible, well, it's a fact that we can achieve presence in virtual environments today, and we don't really understand how that is happening. We have some brief ideas, but. Among the other sciences, to me, it's pretty clear that presence is as I said, it's part of trying to understand how the human brain constructs models of reality and self, and in that sense, to me, it falls squarely within cognitive science. Among the other sciences, to me, it's pretty clear that presence is as I said, it's part of trying to understand how the human brain constructs models of reality and self, and in that sense, to me, it falls squarely within cognitive science. In my case, this is a little bit different. I think there are three things that I can say about this. One is an experience I had. I think some other researchers like me later refer to some experience they've had in the past that is related to presence, and I think I can also point one out, which was in Orlando, in Epcot. There was some kind of attraction, fair thing in which you got into a cart, you observed a wide screen with a wide field of view, and you had a chair which, unbeknownst to you, would tilt back while you were observing the cockpit of an aircraft as it took off. And in that moment, I really experienced very clearly the feeling of being in that airplane in a very powerful way. So that's one aspect. The second aspect is that I am a physicist, and as a physicist, part of the education that I've received and my understanding of physical principles today is that as physical sciences have evolved, they have really pulled us farther and farther away from our natural experience, day-to-day experience of the physical environment. So you have principles like relativity theory, in which the concept of simultaneity and time and space are totally changed from what we experience. There is quantum mechanics, in which you substitute an objective state for the physical environment around you with a probability amplitude function. And all these points into the direction, to me, it makes it clear that what we believe is reality is not what we believe it is at all. It's something else. And this brings me to the last point, which is information theory, and which is related to this. In physics, also, all your theories are based on information, measuring things, extracting information from the environment, which is, I think, exactly what our senses do. So from the information theory point of view, I'm also very interested in how, in things like Kolmogorov complexity, which is this idea that you can compress information. And to what degree can you really compress information? This principle, this concept of Kolmogorov complexity as being the limit of compressibility, I think is closely related to how brains model reality, or how physicists construct theories. What keeps me interested in presence today is first my task as a pitch coordinator to try to really make the best of this opportunity to promote a field which I believe is very important. I think technologically presence will become more and more important as time goes by, as people realize how important it is to understand this manipulation of the subjective feeling of being somewhere. And from the conceptual point of view, I think I'm very interested in this aspect of model making and the construction of models of reality and self that cognitive systems do through the extraction of information. And from a philosophical point of view, I'm interested because it relates very much to what reality is, or what it's not, rather. I think there are many applications. I think there are applications already today having to do with training, engineers being able to navigate through an aircraft and seeing things in mixed reality, which is very closely related to presence. I think there are applications in the medical training and medical day-to-day activities in operations and things like that. I think there's a very important aspect in telepresence, in the communications aspect of presence, and I think presence may in fact provide a very important means to reduce the impact of travel and in this way have a very positive effect with regards to climate change, which is a pressing problem today. So it's hard to really select a field of impact. I mean, of course, entertainment, the future of movies, the future of games, space travel may also benefit from presence research. When you have somebody traveling in a little tin can for 6 months, going to Mars or living in Mars, they may benefit very much from presence technologies to really spend some hours in Hawaii instead, you know. I think it's a boring answer, but from my day-to-day work, having efficient means for telepresence and for interacting with people in virtual environments and in this way save time and fuel and carbon emissions would be a very desirable thing to do. Well, I mean, I could say that one could turn the question around. I mean, what are the ethical issues of not doing presence? I mean, if we go back to this issue of climate change, I mean, I think it's a moral obligation to develop presence technologies today. And so, I mean, of course, there are ethical issues that one can ponder about presence and the fact that you can be in many places, you can assume many forms, you can have multiple selves, and it's a very complex field, and also from the legal point of view, it's enormously complicated to establish. You know, if you're doing something in a virtual environment and you're breaking the law somehow in the real world, how is that to be handled? And that's a very complex issue. But I think my personal worry is more on the moral obligations that we may have to do presence research. I would not like presence research to be used for military use, but of course, like any other technology, that will happen. It's already happening. That's a difficult question. There are many bottlenecks. In presence technology, of course, we have to do a jump, but this is more for the mass market type of applications. But I think head-mounted displays, this type of technologies, have to evolved to a degree of being really usable by many people with a low cost. And I think that's a very important challenge. And once this challenge is surmounted, it will open wide markets and a lot of applications. There are very strong challenges regarding haptics, that is the tactile interfaces to provide feedback and to provide also, as in effectors, both as sensors as an effectors. Haptics is a very important and very challenging field. And then perhaps the greatest bottleneck right now today that it's perhaps not been sufficiently addressed is really the machine intelligence side of things. So one thing is to have a subject with the right interfaces, which is a technological challenge itself. So the right sensors for physiology, the right effectors, the right audio, the right video, all these aspects. But the other side of the coin is that you must have some machine cognition, some machine intelligence, artificial intelligence, call it what you want, that is capable of understanding the state of the subject and presenting the right stimuli and reacting in the right way to make a credible landscape or a credible social interactive situation or something like this. So that's a huge bottleneck, I think, today, and one of the, there are many aspects. Also, speech recognition is also an important bottleneck, and speech interpretation, it's part of the machine intelligence that I was mentioning before too. Well, I do have some ideas, but they are not as concrete as being experimental setups yet, but I really believe that complexity plays a role. So going back to this modeling issue, I think if you can do experiments in which you provide stimuli to a subject and these stimuli are consistent with a simple model of what is going on, then you will have a much higher success in achieving the presence experience. So for instance, just as an example, this the typical experiment that you can do of the nose, the Pinocchio nose experiment, in which somebody is touching your nose while your finger is touching a nose farther away from you. If you can realize experimental setups in which there are simpler explanations of what is happening that are available to the subject, I think presence experience will become bigger, and I think there's some experimental work to be done there. But I think so. I think it will. I think we're in beginning an era in which I don't know how well I can explain this, because it's more of a feeling and intuition than a clear concept. But I think that we're entering we have entered in full the digital age, but not quite as much as we will. And as soon as we really start interacting with virtual and real universes through in very similar ways, then we will perhaps realize that in a more profound way that reality is not what we think it is. No. Well, not beyond what I said before. That I think we are in this transition phase in which humankind is mastering the bit in a way, and this will have profound impacts in what we think reality is, in a very internalized way. That's what I would say. What are the principles that would allow us to understand how cognitive systems, such as the brain or artificial cognitive systems one day, model reality and self?